At first, it had been a debate of some sort the next minute, but now it has been approved and people have received it in a different manner. My question is, rough calculations indicate that the ZBC is set to receive hundreds, if not millions of dollars in revenue from this license every year. What does this mean for the station as ZBC, and what does this mean for the paying public?
It means enhancing the constitutional function of ZBC as a public broadcaster, which has a mandate to ensure that it does not impose commercial interests in terms of having its drive to giving access to information, because a public broadcaster has a mandate to ensure that all government programs, all edutainment reaches our television sets by any means necessary, and without any commercial commitments attached to that. So that is number one. It also means that ZBC is going to have increased content creation, because if you go to other jurisdictions just across the border, you've got your SABC 1, 2, 3. So this means there will be more digital infrastructure to expand ZBC's programming. But most importantly, let's look at ZBC as a conduit to this revenue extraction, but this money is also going to feed into other aspects of enabling even certain media players to benefit from government programs that will be anchored on capacity building, content creation. And wherever content creation is involved, when you expand the sphere of your content creation, it means that you're having more producers, you're having more script writers, you're having more editors, more camera people, high-tech equipment coming into the scene. And we need to look at that value chain outside the generic television, generic radio, listenership and viewership.
Now, Richard, in your response, what I did hear was some local media players might benefit from programs that government or might set up, through ZBC. But then again, we do not just have ZBC-owned radio stations. People are listening to different stations on their stereos when they're going home, some that ZBC do not own. Yet the money that is being paid all of it is going to I did not hear you mention that other stations or other local media players are set to benefit from that fund.
So ZBC in this instance is a conduit to receiving these sums of money, because as a starting point, it has been the institution that has been doing this revenue collection for broadcasting facilities, given its perennial presence in this particular space. But most importantly, whatever the revenue that is going to be collected will feed into the broadcasting sector and not necessarily the primary institutional needs of ZBC. So in this case, ZBC is this big hub, it is this big pool of capital, which the government at some point will then redirect to ensure that the broadcasting sector is revitalized. So there are future strategic roadmaps to ensure that it happens. And remember, this is an experimental funding initiative that is happening 45 years after independence, an innovation that has only come up 45 years after independence. It is a welcome development in the sense that it is going to ensure that the entire sector is fully financed, compared to a situation whereby we found ourselves mostly depending on embassies, multilateral institutions to fund the media sector. And wherever any form of funding is involved, especially if it involves multilateral and bilateral players, your embassies and international organizations, the issue of soft power comes into play. So we are witnessing a situation whereby the state within the broadcasting sector is reclaiming its paternal role to say we are going to mobilize funds, and after we mobilize funds, we are going to finance, we are going to capacitate, we are going to develop the sector. So it's a it's a novel innovation that will strongly capacitate the sector.
So now ZBC has these many people that are helping them pool funds in order to sustain or develop the media sector, as you are putting it across. But then again, it is allowed to be in the same commercial space as the other independent stations that are outside of them, which means they are also competing for the same advertisements that maybe local independent media is also competing for. Why is that? And yet we have these revenue funds that are going into them. They're also still competing in that same field to get commercial adverts and get revenue from those companies. Is that not an unfair advantage?
So the starting point that you need to understand is that ZBC or all public broadcasters need to be financed to pursue a fundamental constitutional mandate. That is very important, in the sense that the constitution mandates all Zimbabweans to have access to information around government programming, around socio-cultural issues, around heritage-based social matters, around economic issues. And ZBC over the years has been going out of its way to ensure that it provides this facility. But unlike entities like yourselves, the ZTN, and maybe just to give another example, ZFM, they don't have any legal binding mandate to actually do coverage of government programs. And we are saying, just like any other social or economic facility that the Zimbabwean gets, the Zimbabwean pays school fees, the Zimbabwean pays to get health facilities, or the Zimbabwean also pays to get water, and all these things are inscribed as fundamental rights. So why should the issue of access to information, which is an equal fundamental right, be alienated in terms of attracting citizen obligations for tax payment? So we are saying the broadcasting sector should not actually be alienated in terms of getting public tax privileges that other services provided for by other sectors are getting. So that is one very critical issue. But then it does not mean that, for instance, Parirenyatwa has got a constitutional mandate to ensure that it provides health for all. Are we together? Mm-hmm. And likewise, if a hospital like Avenues or Mater Dei in Bulawayo has got other excesses of commercial interest that can alienate the common man from that fundamental human right, then no one questions them. But if Impilo Hospital does that, it's a constitutional problem. The same way, if ZBC doesn't give access to a particular set of information to the people, for example, the coverage of Independence Day, the coverage of Heroes Day, or even coverage of disasters, that creates a constitutional problem. So we need to look at the broadcast sector within the universal applicability of service deliveries at a charge like any other sector.
But then, Richard, you still have not answered me, or maybe perhaps I missed your response when you were giving that response. Yeah. Why are they still allowed to get money from commercial advertisements? That is still my question, because in as much as you're saying it's we should be looking at the broadcast sector in a universal manner, cover Independence Media if Independence Day celebrations and get paid for it if it is possible. Why can't they do that for free without getting remunerated, since they are serving the public and it is a public platform?
It's not commercially logical simple because ZBC is a public broadcaster, for ZBC to advertise companies to make millions out of the public and not pay for that. It's a standard across the board globally that public broadcasters also have commercial interests also, and it's not with ZBC again the same commercial narrative that you want to run. ZBC also has a mandate of running national image building by virtue of showing the economic opportunities
Which
that
they
are
can-
available in
which
Zimbabwe.
they
The
can do for
service-
free.
No, they cannot do that
Which they
for
can,
free.
because
It
they
will-
are
it will
getting
be alien.
revenue. Because
It-
people are paying revenues every year. In this case now, we have this new levy that has been introduced worth millions of dollars annually that is going to them, which means they have the capacity to cover these national development agendas without having to let people pay for it.
No, that would not be rational, because you cannot
And where are
have,
we leaving the other media players then, if we are going to say it's not rational for the people that are getting millions a year to go out there and just, do a job for free? Where does this leave the other media players now?
I think it's not well thought out, to say simple, because this one is a public media, and it has issued a law that has not even started generating the revenue, by the way. Therefore, Therefore, it should start having a traffic of free adverts. That would not happen even to the national broadcaster in heaven, if we were to have one when we get there.
But Richard, people have been paying radio and TV licenses from far back.
Yeah.
This is not the first
Yeah.
time. Now, the only difference is now it is really, really mandatory. You cannot get your insurance, you cannot get this before you pay your radio license.
The real difference, actually, is that there would be more revenue that would guarantee better content production, more employment creation, more digital coverage, the widening of the scope of the digital coverage. This is what we have failed to do as far as 2013. So what this means is that even certain sections of our country that didn't have access to the broadcasting signal, we are going to be able to fund that without depending on external donor players to do that for us. And what that would mean, it would mean those underrepresented communities in terms of the broadcasting frequency that has been predominantly urban and predominantly selective would be able to benefit from the universal access to information that is going to accrue from the dividends that this pool fund is going to create. So we should actually celebrate this as an initiative to make people that have been living in the peripheral and the border regions of our country, that they will be having the access to information that me and you have been having to ourselves for the past 45 years, and them depending on fringe access to information from our neighboring states. I'm talking about people who live in the communities near the Plumtree border post, South Africa border post, Nyamapanda. They've been starved of this constitutional privilege that me and you enjoy. And if my tax is going to help them access that information which they've been deprived for 45 years, then it's something worth celebrating.
I'm just going to keep coming back to say, so we're just going to continue to let the bulldogs play with the chihuahuas in this case. Now, another question that I do have, an outcry, you do talk about local content creation, but an outcry from the local content creators that they are not paid what they're owed when they give content to whoever they give them to. What is the government doing in order to promote this?
So it is because in the past there was not enough money.
There
but
wasn't
with this new
there wasn't
initiative,
a
there wasn't
levy.
any sustainable. Yeah, but with this new levy, it means that the content creators across the country, and even foreign content creators who want to showcase their content locally, it means we'll be able to buy the top movies. It means we'll be able to buy the top soapies from across the world and have them on ZBC. And wouldn't that be something that is pleasant and worth welcoming by any rational human being and any lover of TV entertainment? It's worth
and then again you keep on going back to my point and cementing it when I did say, doesn't ZBC have an advantage over all the other stations?
No, all of you will have that advantage.
Which
I'm
advantage
just using
is
it
that?
as a representative sample. The moment these funds begin to be evenly distributed,
they will be evenly distributed.
Of course. ZBC is just a mere conduit for a bigger multi-million-dollar industry that the government is projecting for the growth of the sector. This is why the government has even went further to be licensing this. So the licensing of more television stations was futuristic of this very same development that is going to benefit all content creators, because we want to create a plural and a diverse media environment. And for that plural and diverse media environment, with the massive employment creation that it's going to create, it needs funding. And this is going to be the fund where all of you will be picking trinkets to make sure that you entertain, you educate, and you give access to information, and be the conduits of freedom of expression for our people in your plural editorial policies, in your diverse editorial policies. So the future is bright for the sector.
Is this brightness also going to address the issue of dwindling advertisement when it comes to, TV stations? Because we now have social media.
Yeah.
1 minute a person can sponsor
the adverts, because this money will actually be enough to take care of you. It is money that has not been available for years. You may not need the adverts.
But then again, Richard, you did say that when it comes to benefiting, it's not really financial. It's about the developmental agendas that this fund is going to bring. So indulge me. When you say we are going to be picking, how will that work, the distribution of the funds to the various media houses and media stations?
The underlining term there was you will not need. So perhaps you may want adverts. You are actually being reassigned to your very fundamental function of giving access to information, being platforms for self-expression. So you are going to be one of the richest sectors actually compared to many other sectors, because public funds will be channeled to ensure that you are viable, you remain vibrant, you remain alive. So you should be celebrating this and encouraging viewers to actually ensure that these payments are made. We encourage compliance. If anything, you should actually be having a roadmap around you, how you have a compliance, a robust compliance messaging, because of the dividends that it will do to the sector and to your various audiences who want better quality from you guys.
Talking of which, is this going to also address the issue of remuneration that has plagued the media sector for years now? Such a very controversial issue, so to speak, because it has not only affected the quality of journalism, it has also increased the number of brown envelope journalism that we now see, and it has destroyed or eroded ethical journalism. Is this going to be addressed?
Beyond that, you would recall that there were excesses of US interference into the journalist space by throwing of monies to journalists, which was actually wiped away by the Trump administration. So it means that those journalists that had been were almost in borderline impoverishment and destitution after being dumped by Americans are also going to be benefiting from the new employment opportunities that would come, because more doors in the media space are going to be opened. And for you who have been in this space, it means that even in terms of remuneration, now you are guaranteed of a fund that will be available, something that has not been there for the past 45 years. So perhaps you may be one of the richest, civil servants and richest middle class, you people in the media, in the coming months, if not days.
Richard, what you lay out is a very bright and
because
a
it's
bright future for people.
Because it's bright. It's a bright opportunity for the sector, and there is nothing that warrants any optimism, because we know the direction that we are taking as government. And next year when we meet, we may actually be even in a studio that is far much better than this, because we are actually committed to ensuring that the sector really grows and that the people out there enjoy the best of our viewership, courtesy of the capital that we are plowing into the sector.
Now let's move away from the sector. Like when we did start the conversation, I did say a lot of policies and a lot of documents were signed in this week. Let's talk about the new media policy in regards to what we have just discussed, the issue of the remuneration. How is this new media policy going to help address the issue of brown envelope journalism?
Let's look at the holistic outlook of the policy. So the policy is very clear on human capital development. To say the starting point is to have a camera person, an editor, a producer who has got skills that equally compete with those of a BBC, with those of a CNN reporter, or those who are behind the scenes in one of these media platforms that we envy. You want to have film producers that even surpass the standards of those whose content find their way to Netflix. So we are futuristic and deliberate in terms of an enhanced sense of human capital development of our people. You know, when you look at Nigeria, it boasts of a Nollywood. When you look at India, Nigeria boasts of a Nollywood, and then you also have India that boasts of a Bollywood. So we are envisioning massive human capital development that will also benchmark Zimbabwe way up there to a new phenomena of a Zimbabwe. So this is how we're looking at ourselves. Then immediately after that, it means that the same way we are exporting labor in other areas such as your mining, in other areas such as your tech economy, we will have journalists that will actually excesses of journalistic talent, excesses of media talent that will be exporting. So it means that the first step of human capital development is going to take that direction. And of course, with the abundance of funds that are coming into the sector which have not been in the sector, it means the issue of remuneration would not be anything to worry about or even imagine lack of it for the years to come or for posterity, as it were.
I still just want to also center the conversation around the new media policy.
Yeah.
You have mentioned, everything that you've said, a robust media sector, a robust media industry. Is this all that the media policy is set to address? If you can just lay it down for the ordinary man who just really doesn't understand what it is and what it really is all about.
Maybe to reiterate the point, the human capital development I'm talking about is a situation whereby we are going to invest in producing talent that has got people who may produce beyond the standards of what you see on Netflix, on Al Jazeera, and most of these so-called prestigious platforms. But most importantly, other issues related to the digitization of the sector. We are in a time where the issue of traditional media and new media must actually converge. So the issue of traditional and new media convergency, we are taking a deliberate stand around that and investing in it. This is why you'd also notice that at the ZITF, at the recently held ZITF, we actually had an exhibition that had a twofold approach of traditional and new media. For those who are analytical enough should have seen that that is the future of government's equal commitment to supporting traditional and new media, and the policy speaks to that. And in terms of local content production, we are going to enhance that function. And in terms of responding to the economic needs of our sector, the latest amendment of the Broadcast Services Act is coming in as a perennial solution to the problems, to the financial crisis that has ravaged the sector. So those are some of the representative samples of the transformation and the turnaround strategy that this policy is putting in place. And remember, ever since the birth of the Second Republic, we were not also so clear in terms of our communication guideline, be it at government level, how we relate with stakeholders. This policy responds to that. And the aspect of media sovereignty, to say you people have got a mandate to be honest enough in executing your duties without any fear or favor. So this policy underscores those pertinent sections of our law that should enhance your sovereignty as a sector. And I think that is very welcome.
Now, speaking of which, you have mentioned we are moving into the future. It's the digital world now. Technology is essentially taken over, so to speak, and some are calling the traditional media, they're saying it's now on its dying bed. I want to hear from you, just to pick your mind a bit or your brain a bit. Is the traditional media dying?
No, it's lazy thinking, because if you go to other economies today, as we speak, Britain produces more than 20 newspapers a day.
More than 20?
Yeah.
20?
Yeah, there's more than 20 publications.
Oh, publications, not... Okay.
Yeah, you look at New York, just New York, we are talking of more than 131 broadcast and print players. You go across South Africa, you are talking of more than 123 broadcast players. So it only means that we need to think beyond the conventional outlook of what it means to be a broadcaster or what it means to be a print media house. For instance, if you look at the example of Zim Papers, as it stands, there is now a Korea revenue stream that is being generated by Zim Papers. You also look at that the institution has actually established one of the futuristic largest think tanks as far as the training, the dedicated and the specialized training of journalists is concerned. You also look at that 100 years back, even the very white people, the very colonialists who established this thing, and never imagined that one day it will be reconfigured into a television station, it will be reconfigured into a massive national events organizing entity. So this is the innovation that you guys have shown, that you can live beyond the extermination threats that arise from laziness to imagine, laziness to think outside the box. So this should be the same even for other media houses whose main point of dependency was foreign embassies and multilateral institutions who were through that process were having editorial directives mostly to harm the to harm the reputation of the nation in a way or the other.
How kudos to Zim Papers then for leading the revolution. Now,
precisely.
Lest we digress, let's go back now to the media policy once again. We have media stakeholders like MESA, we have ZUJ, we have ZINEF rather. I wanted to say that out loud in the full sense. And we have media organizations like Zim Papers. Were they consulted when the media policy was drafted?
Of course.
Who was consulted?
Maybe let's just not limit the conversation to consultations and say, is there, because your question seems to suggest that there is no rapport between stakeholders and government.
Yes, we want to understand if they did consult and contribute.
There is that very cordial, perennial cordial relationship courtesy of the reform thrust of the Second Republic. So just this particular month only, we had civic society organizations who were even having World Press Day workshops, and the ministry never turned down any of those invitations. So there is this rapport, there's been this continued consultation even beyond the writing of this particular policy, and even beyond, we are going to actually have further consultations. I would want to take you back to time and say, you know, there was IPA at some point, there was POSA, and by any sheer stroke of your imagination, did you ever think that one day would wake up without POSA? No. Why? Because there was this engagement that facilitated that. So when policies are put in place, when legislation is put into place, it is meant to stimulate further engagement. So these two pieces of law, these two pieces of policy and legislative interventions are meant to steer that conversation that will cause us to continuously rehabilitate our policies, continuously cause us to reflect on our decisions as government to improve the deliverables that affect or are linked to the sector.
So your response being media,
We continuously engage. We have engaged. We are engaging. We will continue to engage. We consult. We consulted, and perhaps we should imagine ourselves consulting further.
and that is to say they actively contributed to the crafting of the media
Not
policy.
only that, we constantly engage. So let's not narrow the engagement to mere policy interventions. We engage every day. As I'm speaking right now, we also have another particular engagement with the media through a policy dialogue. And yesterday, I was actually assigned to another. And as we speak on Monday, the minister will also be having engagements with the media at a training workshop. So we are engaging every time. And the fact that you should also see the extent to which we have opened our doors to yourselves, the media, whenever you need information, wherever there are government events. So we engage every time.
How did
We
the
are
media...
we are hands-on in terms of our engagement.
In their contribution, the media practitioners, the media stakeholders rather, and the media organizations, what was their take on the media policy? How did they feel about it, about the crafting and about how it is going to be used when it comes into effect?
No, before the crafting, they presented their concerns. And after they presented their concerns...
What were the concerns?
The concerns were economic challenges around the sector. Jens pillar number 1 speaks to that. Challenges around high taxes in terms of bringing equipment to enhance local content creation that has been taken care of. Skills, incapacitation, and the desire to compete with global players. A pillar takes care of that. So all the pillars that you see in that policy, the media sovereignty, they were saying, yes, in as much as you have reformed, but we want an expansion of our media sovereignty. So the policy pillars are a response to what the media demanded. And we merely we merely converted the demands to solutions. And this policy is solution-driven, deriving from the problems that the media presented to us, and which the media continues to present to us. And remember, this is a 5-year-long strategy. So it means, as it stands, we are beginning to collect future concerns beyond 2030, so that the next document speaks to issues that journalists want to address between 2030 and beyond.
Now let's go back to the issue we're talking about the professionalism or the skills that journalists have. You did mention that ZimPapers is, it has a platform where journalists can learn and improve and hone their craft. But beyond ZimPapers, we're talking about about the government approach now. What are you doing now to ensure that media practitioners outside those of ZimPapers are able to develop their skill or build their skills in that regard?
So I think maybe let me re-explain that point. The ZimPapers Institute is not open for the ZimPapers staff, but it is open for the public. And unlike MSU, unlike the polytechnical colleges you find in the country, it is a high-level, specialized media specialized entity. You don't find courses in makeup. You are not going to find courses in plumbing. It's an institution that has got dedicated training to media, and it is I think perhaps the only institution like that in Zimbabwe, and arguably in the SADC region, or maybe in Africa. So the fact that this institution has got these specialized skills that it will be dispatching to willing learners, it means that you will perhaps see even other people from other nationalities coming to learn from the ZimPapers Institute, because it is, when you enroll there, you eat media, you smell media, you sleep the media, and breathe the media, and nothing else. And that makes the institution one of perhaps a world-class, massive specialized media training center that perhaps the world is yet to see in terms of the human quality outputs that it would give.
Oh, Richard, sorry to say, but the phrase sleep with the media might be a bit sensitive, especially because of the sexual harassment issues in the media industry. Let's talk about that actually. Is the new media policy going to address that issue, especially for women in the newsrooms? Not that it is limited to women, because men also experience sexual harassment, and it is very rampant within the media space. How is it going to be addressed?
The time for sexual predators is over in the newsrooms, or anywhere near the newsroom, or anywhere near the journalist. So the policy is clear about that, and consequences, very sharp consequences will be faced.
Which ones are those? Let's just lay them out on the table.
Perhaps termination of practice and escalation of those issues to have the commensurate criminal weight they deserve.
Has that not always been the case? What has been the case prior to the new media policy?
It has been speeches and slogans, but this time it's going to be actions as guided by a sector-specific policy that Zimbabwe is only having 45 years after independence. Back then it was rhetoric, but now it's on pen and paper, and sharp consequences will ensue.
Now, Richard, we talked about the media policy. We have talked about the ZBC licensing fee. Now I want to bring it to the ordinary public that is going to be paying this license fee. I've talked about how it's going to affect the media. Now let's talk about the people that are going to pay it. Allow me to read this part. The Broadcasting Amendment Services Act requires that Zinara shall only issue motor vehicle insurance to individuals or companies who either hold a current radio license issued by the Zimbabwe Broadcasting Corporation, ZBC, or a valid exemption certificate from ZBC, unless the vehicle is to be insured and not equipped with a radio receiver. The outcry now is that this fee is too steep for ordinary citizens. They are saying it's way too much for us. Not only are we paying for that, we have to pay for our insurance. You have to pay car service fees. It's now just way too much for the car owners. Will there be some sort of, reconfiguration of that fee?
Even in the so-called developed countries, there's always outcry when taxes are put in place. But let's come back home. You recall at some point we had the 2% tax around 2018, which actually anchored the Transitional Stabilization Program. And we saw developments in terms of the roads, in terms of our medical facilities, in terms of our schooling environments, in terms of water and sanitation, in terms of command agriculture. But most importantly, it was that very same money that was able to salvage Zimbabwe from the ravaging and global effects that COVID-19 yet actually inflicted on millions of people. So taxes may sound painful, but if they are put into good use, as we are going to do with these particular taxes, the public might feel the gain of the pain.
So no downward revision of that fee at all, or not even a consideration, because people are complaining about it.
The issue is most of the times we confuse social media sentiments by certain people to mean that it reflects a national outcry. I want to hear direct outcries coming from people in Mzarabani, from people in Kai, because these people are represented by members of parliament who are able to take those concerns to parliament. But if you are only glued to analyzing the national question on the basis of hashtags and a few social media popular views, and you want to confuse that to be national outcries. No, national outcries, you've got channels of being expressed, and one channel being the parliament. So let's hear correct feedback from members of parliament who spend time with the people in Mzarabani, in Guruwe, in Shamva, in Mturashanga, in Zumba Maramba Pfungu?
I do not know how the members of parliament have not yet brought those outcries to the parliament, because from what we have uncovered, what we have discovered when we went around and asked how the public feels about it, it has been an outcry. $30 per term, correct me if I'm wrong, is $30.
Which public are you talking about?
I am talking
about the public in Chivu? Are you talking about the public in Kai?
Here in Zimbabwe.
Talking about the public in
I'm
Harare?
talking about the public in Zimbabwe.
Which part of Zimbabwe?
All the parts of Zimbabwe. You've mentioned all those parts of Zimbabwe. Richard, my
I want
question.
to see your interview in Kai,
I will
where
show
people
you.
in Kai lament
We'll show you
the
those.
taxes
We'll
are
show you
very
those interviews.
high.
My question now would have to be.
I thought you'd throw a file picture the same way.
No, a file
Trump
picture
did,
has.
a file the same
It's very
Trump
unfortunate.
approach.
Very unfortunate we're not sitting in the White House. There is a file footage, but my question is. Who was consulted or who is consulted when these fees are gazetted? Because you cannot have everyone being against it and a few people being for it.
Did you by a few people, what is the statistical source of justifying that it is a few people who are happy about it and many? Do we have a survey that yourselves carried out?
I mean, you also don't have a survey of who's happy or
no,
who's
we
not.
did, because we had national outreaches as a ministry across all districts, because remember, we've got district information officers, we also have provincial information officers, so the ministry is present in every district in Zimbabwe. So if those consultations never reached you, or the few who are complaining, it means that perhaps it's citizens who do not exercise their right to participate in public decision making through the participatory culture that the Second Republic has introduced. So we have got reports from our districts across the country where we carried out that. And remember, the members of parliament also debated this extensively across the political divide of our country, which is in the parliament. So it means that the opposition for a law, actually, maybe let me take you back to school and school you around issues of how laws and public policies are made. So, for example, we're going to talk about an act. So, the ministry initiating an idea is supposed to have public consultations, which capture the representative sample of ideas in the population. And we did that. That's number one. We also had a consultant that was able to actually capture the data and all these issues. And even with respect to the policy, like I said, we have been engaging the media, we are engaging, and we will continue engaging the media. So the media was consulted. And then after that, let's go back to the policy, to the legislation issue. So after those consultations are made, then issues are motioned in parliament 2, 3, 4 times, robust debate across the political divide. By the time a bill is sent to the president for assenting, it means the entire parliament or the majority of the MPs in parliament would have agreed with that. So if the MPs that represent the people have made a decision to say this is correct, therefore we cannot be misled by views of a fringe that have got popular Twitter accounts and confuse that to X, it's now called X, huh?
Yeah,
to confuse that to be the popular sentiment, because that does not resonate with the organic demographics of our country. Given that we've got PIOs, given that we have got DIOs, given that we have been having consultants, and we actually carried a survey to this effect. We didn't just arrive at this decision without going through this rigorous methodology.
Now, I'm just now curious to know, maybe I missed it when the media was being consulted, but in your rigorous approach and in your rigorous surveys and research, $30 was just the consensus throughout. there was not even maybe $15, or maybe have you considered 50? Was the 30 just a unanimous agreement?
Initially, the most popular sentiment was $55.
I wonder who was giving those opinions.
The people who were participating in our
From
district level comms and other platforms and other stakeholders that we engaged. But this is a product of compromise. It is a product of rationality, and perhaps a product of future compromise on our part, if there is genuine outcries that will come through progressive counter proposals, through parliamentary channels, through lobbying entities. Perhaps if you feel it is too much and you think you don't need that money, as the media yourselves, you know our doors are open for you. Write to us and tell us that you do not want that money to capacitate your sector to increase content production and work in the favor of your remuneration increases.
Still a very
we are open to that.
Still a very sensitive and contentious issue, but that's
but we're open to that. If all of you, the media, instruct us that no, the money is too much and we think we are not going to benefit from it because we think it's too much, we are going to abuse it if it becomes too much, then we'll take that recommendation.
That now just sounds like manipulation of the media.
No, it's not. I'm just trying to perhaps rethink things in your frame.
It just now sounds as if you're saying, well, as the media, if you continue saying there's an outcry,
no.
then we're going to cut off that supply from you.
No. It's if you as the media are concerned to say, no, this policy is going to cause us to have a lot of money and will become extravagant. Then we can simply say, okay, fine, we are going to reduce the taxes. But if you feel that this is going to strategically save your enhanced content production, strategically save your human capital development, strategically save many facets of developing the sector, your digitization, then that's it.
Richard Maova leaving us with words of manipulation, so to speak, or some words of encouragement as we are now going into the new media policy and the new radio licensing fees. This has been The Chase. I had been joined in studio by Richard Runyara Romahomba, who is Director International Communications with the Ministry of Information. Richard, thank you for joining us right here on The Chase.
Compel the viewers to pay their taxes for better content delivery, for your better remuneration, for digital expansion of our sphere. Thank you for hosting me. And if that is paid, it means the viewers will be having more of these lovely conversations that you create for us. Thank you so much.
Well, I have been your host, Faith Nyode. Good evening and enjoy the rest of your viewing.
Get ready. All in one place. Introducing the new Zim Digital Decoder so you can enjoy more in full HD for free without monthly subscriptions. You can now get to enjoy Zimbabwe's best and new TV and radio channels on the Zim Digital Decoder countrywide. All you need to do is purchase your Zim Digital Decoder for $25 or Zig equivalent. This is a once-off payment for the decoder, no monthly subscriptions. Hurry and get your Zim Digital Decoder at Transmedia Offices, Broadcasting Authority of Zimbabwe, Kingstones, Ground Floor, Harare, and all TV broadcasters. Zim Digital, Tirimotese, Sonke Skon.
Hi everyone, my name is Misha and I want to make a distinction between who I am and what I do. So who I am is a daughter, and I mention that first because I honor my parents. They are my cover, and this is not only important for a young woman, but more so a young woman in the creative space. I was raised between Harare and Bulawayo in a very culturally diverse family. I'm also a mother, a sister, a friend, and what I do is I MC, I facilitate, I'm on TV, I do voiceovers, and I also do a bit of modeling here and there. So I started off, the very first time I ever spoke in front of people was in grade 1 at Henry Law, where I delivered a speech at Speech and Prize Giving Day, got a standing ovation, and realized that I had a gift and skill. And I'm so grateful to my parents for nurturing that from such a young age. And here I am today. As an MC in my early days, and I've been MCing for over a decade now, is I think what was memorable when I then realized that there was a difference between how I show up as an MC and how I bring in my facilitation experience. So an MC has the liberty to show up maybe an hour before the event, go through the program, keep everybody engaged. But a facilitator is really responsible for setting the tone, preparing beforehand, running through the program with the conference or event organizers, and then making sure that everything goes off without a hitch. I think as a facilitator, I don't respond to the energy in the room, I set the tone. And so that's part of my preparation, is understanding the context, understanding the content that we're wanting to deliver, and then preparing myself to be able to make a connection and invite the audience onto a journey with me. I've hosted a variety of events, from award shows, from dinners, birthday celebrations, album launches, weddings, and I think the most unique event that I have facilitated so far has to be the Diplomatic Spouses Association, or DSA Bazaar. And so the DSA is a not-for-profit organization that raises funds for charities, and what they do is at the end of the year they gather to celebrate. They have different businesses coming to exhibit, and also the embassies that are present in Zimbabwe coming to exhibit, showing the best of their food, the best of their culture, and the best of their lifestyle. So I really enjoyed that event. That has to be one of the most unique ones I've done so far. I've really got my eye on hosting the British Council Creative Week, and this is hosted in different countries on the continent, and this year it was hosted in Zimbabwe, so I look forward to partnering with them and hosting that. I'm also really looking forward to hosting a SOFA concert in Toulouse in France, and SOFA is a global movement of musical experiences that are carefully curated so that artists and music lovers can come together, share, interact. So I'm the host for the Zimbabwe SOFA. We do one concert every month, and I'm looking forward to collaborating and hopefully hosting one in Toulouse in France. I've hosted local events. I've also hosted and facilitated events in Senegal, in Rwanda. In Senegal, it was the celebration of the Invisible Giants, which is an organization that takes time to recognize the impact and the work of women and men across the continent that are having local impact as well as global impact. So I hosted that in Senegal. And then I also hosted an inception meeting for an Africa Youth Panel, which is a youth engagement project in 10 African countries. And so that was the inception meeting that I facilitated in Rwanda. So the strangest thing that's happened to me in my hosting and facilitation was when I had been approached to facilitate Tembalami's second album launch, and this was the Faith Aid Kit at the Celebration Center. So if you know that place packs up about 3,000 or more people. And so I had been brought on to co-facilitate this. About 45 minutes before the show, my co-MC sent a message that he couldn't make it anymore. So here I was with this task of facilitating this huge gathering, and the keynote speaker for that, or the guest of honor for that, was Reverend Benjamin Dube. And so it was absolutely packed. And you know, everybody loves Tembalami, so it was a huge challenge, but I managed to do it, and I realized that I actually love bringing in my facilitation skills into my emceeing, and that really just strengthens the work that I do and enables me to connect with the audience and bring them into conversation rather than being there and speaking at them. So that was a strange event, but it turned out really well. To be a successful MC, you need to think about, and I've just coined this now, but the 3 C's. You need to think about the context in which you're emceeing. You need to think about the content that you're wanting to deliver, and then you also need to be very mindful about making a connection with the audience or with the participants that are in this event. Also, I would say just be yourself. We are actually always facilitating in our day-to-day lives. So I'm the firstborn of many kids, and I say as a deputy parent, parent, I'm constantly facilitating things around the household, but find your gifts and your strengths that you're bringing in, your unique abilities, and then become a facilitator, not just an MC. My MC style summed up in 3 words. So definitely the first would be facilitation. So it goes beyond. It's the pre-planning, it's the understanding the intention about the event and then also being able to deliver that. The second word I think would be edifying, because I'm very conscious that when I'm up on stage and I'm having communication with people, I would love for them to come in as strangers and leave having had an experience and an opportunity to connect with others and not only with myself. And I think the third word would probably be joyful. I really aim to do the work that I do with lots of joy, not only that I'm experiencing joy, but that I'm also able to share that joy with everybody that is in, whether it's a meeting or a convening, a reflective session, a community-based organization meeting, a celebration. I really want to be able to do that with joy. So those are the 3 things that would set me apart.
Welcome to ZTN Online. Unlock endless entertainment. Dive into ZTN's on-demand digital universe. Catch up with ZTN Prime. Stream movies, TV shows, and live events anytime. Your news, your way. Enjoy exclusive content and dynamic live streams only on ZTN. Updates on the go. Stay informed with local and international news anytime, anywhere. Sign up for free today. No credit card required. Sign up now at www.ztn.co.zw. ZTN, get the picture.
Come along and join ABC and his friends as they take kids on an incredible learning adventure like no other. Are you ready?
Let's G.O. go!
Can no one tell me a good story?
Hi, I'm Ivan. I love making things.
Mash saves the day.
Ready, set, go!
An astronaut is stranded on Mars.
Boy Robo to the rescue!
This plant actually eats its food.
There's a living dinosaur in the woods!
Oh.
That was awesome!
On this week's episode of C'est La Vie, it's a cluster world, as Brian gives us the lowdown on the pros and cons of investing in this type of property. Up next, we chat to multi-talented DJ and events promoter, Selector Bass, who gets candid about his journey in the entertainment industry and acquiring the title of hosting the biggest car shows in town. And in the spirit of car culture, we hone in on burnouts as we chat to award-winning spinner Faziel, who fills us in on his journey, the importance of car culture, and shares a few stunt tips and tricks for spinners and car enthusiasts countrywide. Welcome to C'est La Vie.